Hello everybody, once again. This hopefully will be a short video. In this video we're going to talk about what kind of country you really live in. And the question is asked, what country do you live in again? Do you live in the home of the free? Do you live in the land of the free? Do you live in the home of the brave? Do you really think you live in a constitutional republic if you live in the United States of America? To be frankly honest, you can ask yourself these questions no matter where in the world you live, but these questions are basically pointed towards you, U.S. citizens, that is, citizens of the United States of America. Now, the reason why the question is that I ask is because during these times of devastation throughout the country, primarily the southeastern states of Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, and West Virginia, there's been some things come up that have basically flown under the radar. Now, in the video, Treason in Tragedy, I asked the simple question with the way things are being handled. Is there treason at work? And I'm going to ask the same question in this video. Is this treason? What I'm about to show you, is this treason? And why should you care? And I don't want to distract from the the recovery of the lives of those who are in peril times right now. But unfortunately, we have those in various places of what do you want to call? I almost don't want to call it leadership anymore, because they simply cannot let a good crisis go. They always have to say, we're not going to let a good crisis go to waste. And that's exactly what they do. They don't let a good crisis go to waste. So what exactly am I talking about? Well, like I said, as things were unrolling with the hurricanes, and then also we weren't told about, or I just learned about it here about an hour ago, that much of Oklahoma or Wyoming is on fire, and wildlife is running away trying to escape fire. There's a lot of fire in that state. I can't remember which state it is. It's either Oklahoma or Wyoming. And so there's a lot of things going on, but under the radar, there's a lot of things going on too. And as far as I'm concerned, they're illegal. Well, let's take a quick look. Let's see what is going on in the state of affairs as we know it today. So what came up here, October the 6th, is this headline. Now, it came through my email feed. And I'm going to be honest with you, this really is nothing new. This is actually out of a playbook from a couple of decades ago, and we're going to explain that in just a moment. This article actually reaches back before that, and I don't remember that, though I'm not saying it's not true. But this article actually reaches back, and let's go ahead and read it. If you remember back when Obama was the president, similar things happened, and that's what I'm talking about. Now, these guys are talking about the Bush era. But in the comments, before we get into this, in the comments, if something like this is okay with you, please write it in the comments in YouTube and in Rumble or Facebook. Doesn't matter to me. All three, as far as I'm concerned, until I get kicked off of a platform or two. But if you don't agree with this and you wonder what's going on, you can please comment that as well. I'd like to know where people in America sit with all this stuff. So what we have is we have this article from October the 6th, and I'm going to throw a title in here real quick because I forgot to hit my record button. Oops, let's do that right there real quick. I'm sorry, people. I just have to do this really fast. All right. And then we'll come back to here. Sorry about that. I forgot to hit the record button. When you're a one-man show, these one-man band here, this is what happens. So anyways, getting back on track here. Let's go ahead and read this. If you want me to blow it up so that you don't see my mug here and you want it full screen. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that and I'll read this real quick. So here we have October the 6th with headline USA. Biden-Harris regime quietly amends directive against assassination of Americans. So you would say, well, that could be a good thing. And then the subtitle is, why would the regime feel the need to legalize killing Americans who threaten the foundations of our democracy? So let's just right away say what we have here is, first of all, we have an amendment to a policy, and no matter what these policies are, well, I shouldn't say no matter what they are. The policies in the past were directives and policies to not be able to target American citizens. And over the course of the last 4 decades or so, these directives have changed. And we're going to get into that just a little bit here. And that is why I asked you, where do you live? Do you live in the United States of America? Do you live in the land of the free? Do you live in the home of the brave? Let's continue on with this article. The Biden-Harris administration amend a Bush-era directive against the assassination of Americans. So Bush had, and boy, wrong button. Now this is the difference, people, between left wing and right wing. You all want to call the right wing Nazis and communists and dictators. Bush, as much as I think he is not necessarily all that great, had a directive against assassinating U.S. citizens. And then comes along your illustrious Democrats. And I am not neither Democrat or Republican. I'm not. Now, someone would say, well, you're a registered Republican. Yeah, I registered Republican a long, long time ago. I haven't changed it. But that's not how I vote. I vote on policy. I vote on the law. I vote on who's representing the people. Let's continue this for a moment. The Biden-Harris administration amended a Bush-era directive against, and that's a key word, against the assassination of Americans as it pertains to law enforcement activities in intelligence collection and national security. The Defense Department appears to have removed the language asserting that under no circumstances shall any component or employee of the federal body engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. This clear language appeared in the August 2007 version of the directive. So in 2007, the military, Department of Defense, inserted that under no circumstances shall any employee of the federal government engage in or conspire to assassinate American citizens. That sounds pretty plain to me, and proper, by the way. The Defense Department appears to have removed language asserting. So now, under Biden and Kamala, the Defense Department appears to have removed the language asserting under no circumstances shall any component or employee of the federal body engage in or conspire to engage in assassination. So, under Biden and Kamala, the DOD has removed the language keeping a hold on the federal government from assassinating its own citizens. So there's one thing here that I want to point out. Do you remember when Trump was in Butler, Pennsylvania, and some things happened, and then there was a White House correspondence meeting with the press secretary, and that particular press secretary was asked about certain policies, and she basically told the reporter, "How dare you question what we do? Not what we say, what we do." She admitted, without saying it, she admitted on air that they were engaged in assassination attempts. And now, October the 6th, you have this come out from Biden and Harris and the Department of Defense removing a hold on federal employees in DOD's hands for assassinating American citizens. You say, well, they don't say anything about assassinating American citizens. That's what this whole thing's about. That is what this whole thing is about. So the clear language appeared in the August 2007 version of the DOD directives, and it said, under no circumstances shall a federal employee or anybody in the military be allowed to target or conspire to assassinate American citizens. So let's continue down here on September 27th, 2024. That was just here not too far in the past. More vague, the Department of Defense established more vague language, stating that no department, civilian employee, or member of the armed forces will engage or conspire to engage in assassination. Under no circumstances clause is notably missing, prompting many on social media to sound the alarm about the intent behind the change. So right now, you may want to close your windows and you may want to bar your doors. I will tell you, this also comes not only on the heels of certain assassination attempts within the borders of our country, it also comes on the heels of a major campaign against the freedom of speech. Now, if you tie the different things together, you can quickly ascertain that we're quickly becoming like other countries that in the past we literally fought. Nazi Germany comes to mind. When the government does not uphold the law of the land, the fundamental law of the land, and they circumvent it, you are no longer in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Like the police officer said from the stuff down south, free men don't ask permission. Now, listen here. The Constitution is not the law to tell you necessarily what the government can allow you to do. It is the law that limits the government on your behalf. In part, anyways. So these things really, to be frankly honest, aren't really that new. Well, they come and they go. A directive comes in the form of an executive order signed by the president. So this executive order hands down directives, and operating procedures to agencies that are not elected. That would be the DoD and other agencies with alphabet designations. And it appears to me to come out of the playbook of none other than Barack Obama when he was the president. Here we have an article from May 31st of 2012, President Obama's secret kill list. Now, before you go on and say, well, you know what, this is from Fox News, actually. So let me bring that on the screen real quick. Fox News, and there you have it. Now, let me say this. Fox News hit this, and I'm going to say something about it here in just a second. Fox News hit this. There was a news ticker that came across the screen on a Sunday morning. And I'm going to read this. I'm going to tell you what the ticker said. Now, this was in May 31st of 2012. Let's go ahead and read it. The leader of the government regularly sits down with his senior generals and spies and advisors and reviews a list of people they want him to authorize their agents to kill. They do this every Tuesday morning when the leader is in town. The leader once condemned any practice even close to this, but now relishes the killing because he has convinced himself that it is a sane and sterile way to keep his country safe and himself in power. The leader who is running for re-election even inviting his campaign manager to join the group that decides whom to kill. This is not from a work of fiction, and it is not describing a series of events in the Kremlin or Beijing or Pyongyang. It is a fair summary of a 6,000-word investigative report in the New York Times. The New York Times wrote about it earlier this week about the White House of Barack Obama. Two Times journalists Joe Becker and Scott Shane painstakingly and chillingly reported that the former lecturer in constitutional law and liberal senator who rallied against torture and Gizmo now weekly reviews a secret kill list. Oh, imagine that. Hypocrisy, anybody? Nothing to see here. Personally decides on who should be killed, then dispatches kills all over the world. And some of his killers have killed Americans. Now, before you say anything like, well, that doesn't happen on our shores, I am going to tell you you're wrong. I'm just going to flat out tell you you're wrong. We've known for some time, let me go back to the screen here. We've known for some time that President Obama is waging a private war. By that, I mean he is using the CIA on his own and not the military. After congressional authorization, that is, he uses the military at his own at his own, oh man, I just lost the word, at his own authorization to fire drones at thousands of persons in foreign lands, usually while they are riding in a car or a truck. He has done this both with the consent and over the objection of governments of the countries in which he has killed. He doesn't want to talk about this, but he doesn't deny it. How chilling is that? David Axelrod, the president campaign manager, has periodically seen the secret kill list. Might this be to keep the killing politically correct? Can the president legally do this? In a word, no. Let's go this way. In a word, no. In a word, nothing. He can't. He's not supposed to be able to. Now, let's continue on. This is about Obama. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the two we got now aren't smart enough to cook this stuff up. They will more than heartily agree to it. So that ought to tell you either this dude's behind it or the handlers behind all of them. Probably both. The president cannot lawfully order the killing of anyone except according to the Constitution. Oh, wait a minute. I have a question for you. Where did you say you live? What country do you live in? Oh, a constitutional republic. Is that right? Just asking the question. Wait a minute. Do you live in the land of the free and the home of the brave? Really? I'm just throwing the questions out there. The president cannot lawfully order the killing of anyone, except according to the Constitution and federal law. Under the Constitution, he can only order killings using the military when the U.S. has been attacked, or when an attack is so imminent and certain that delay would cause innocent American lives. Okay, so right now I'm going to read what is burned and etched into my mind from this era from Obama. I'm going to show you some tabs here. Let's see if I can get these pulled up. So right here we have a tab, Obama oversees secret terror kill list. These, I'm going to say something, these videos refuse to come up. And I think I know why. Now, at this point, I'm only speculating. So you need to understand that. Because I don't really know. But I'm going to make a statement on this, and then we're going to go back to the whole idea. Here, President's secret kill list. Then we have one a little closer to home. Did Miller make Obama's kill list? Now, Miller would be somebody close to home. Now, we're going to get to this article in just a moment right here. Notice the headline, ACLU. Keep that in the back of your hat. Now, let's go back to here. Oh, let me see. Let's go back to here. I had it right the first time. Right here. So, we have the president cannot lawfully order the killing of anyone except according to the Constitution and federal law. Now, I have here, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Let me read this. Give me a break. This is a comment on Facebook. Give me a break. If people would just use morals, I agree, and values, I agree, and just stop being obedient, that would be as per the Constitution, I agree. Then they can't do a thing, a bleep thing. Plus, having good people defend them equals removing tyrannical authority. I don't disagree. The point is that this is allowed to happen so long as we put up with it. Appreciate the comment. The other thing is that these things on our shores are not necessarily done with drones. They are done in more discreet ways and more wet ways. And so it's very difficult to get a handle on it. And it has to be done at the representative and the purse level. Anyways, let's go back. So he cannot do it. Let's see. Under the Constitution, he can only order killing using the military when the U.S. has been attacked, or when an attack is so imminent and certain that delay would cause innocent American lives, or in pursuit of a congressional declaration of war. Under federal law, he can only order killing using civilians when a person has been sentenced lawfully to death by a federal court and the jury verdict and the death sentence has been upheld on appeal. If he uses the military to kill, federal law requires public reports of its use to Congress and congressional approval after 180 days. The U.S. does not declare war, has not declared war since World War II. By the way, that is a statement of fact, and that also rings true to the fact that in 2010, Panetta, who was in charge of the CIA, which is mentioned in another article we're going to look at, was actually grilled by Jeff Sessions and said, why do you keep sending our men and women to war when Congress hasn't declared war? And after 30 minutes of being grilled, he said, look, we take our orders from the UN and from NATO, and when you have a need to know, we'll let you know. That is problematic, people. This is problematic, and that was problematic, and that was at the same time that this stuff was brought out. So keep it all in your mind. The U.S. has not declared war since World War II. If the president knows that an attack on our shores is imminent, he'd be hard-pressed to argue convincingly that a guy in a truck, a desert 10,000 miles away from here, no matter his intentions, poses a threat to the U.S. so imminent and certain that he needs to be killed on the spot in order to save lives of Americans who would surely die during the time it would take to declare war on the country that harbors him, or during the time that it would take to arrest him. Under no circumstances may he use civilian agents for non-judicial killing. That is basically the death sentence. Surely CIA agents can use deadly force to protect themselves, but they may not use it offensively. Federal laws against murder apply to the president and to all federal agents and personnel wherever they go on the planet. So the U.S. military, federal agents are tied to the Constitution as well as the governing laws of the land that they're traversing. I recognize that when I was in the military. If you screwed up, if you was here at home and you screwed up, you had to deal with potentially regardless of or based on whatever laws you broke. If it was a speeding ticket, obviously you would deal with the jurisdiction that pulled you over. And then when you got back to post, you'd have to deal with your CO. And if things got too bad, then it would go to martial law. So the same thing is true overseas. If you did something overseas that was against their law, like in Korea, they let kids play in the middle of the road, and if you run over their kid, you're automatically going to prison, and nobody's getting you out. The U.S. government's not getting you out. Mommy and daddy's not getting you out. Nobody's getting you out. That was back in the day. So for this article to say that employees in CIA and military is tied to the Constitution, that is 100% correct. So let me now share with you what I remember ingrained into my head. It was a Sunday morning. I had just finished getting ready for church. I had just helped a couple of the boys get ready for church. And I was sitting in the living room in the rocker, easy chair rocker. And I was just watching Fox News for just a moment. And across the bottom of the ticker, it read this: Obama tells Congress and the courts to stay out of the way of his targeted kill list, to include American citizens and militia. That's exactly what it said, word for word. Now, I showed you 3 tabs from the Fox News network from that era, and they all had videos on them, and they cannot be pulled up. Now, there's two reasons that I can think of, and I am assuming, I'm speculating as to why. Number one, they're cut off. You will always get an error. And they're cut off due to censorship as we know it today because of what was said on video back then. You can read it because somebody else is reporting it, but when Obama himself says it on camera, you're not going to find a video. The other option would be that Fox News, because back then they called Obama out on some things, I distinctly remember, and then they were told to shut up and pull it, and they did, and they became compromised. And perhaps right now, because they are not showing these videos that belong right here, they are self-censoring because they're compromised. Now, those are simply two speculative ideas as to why I keep getting error messages on these videos. Sheer speculation. Understand that. Let's go back to this article. Since 9/11, the United States government has set up national security systems that function not under the Constitution, not under the Geneva Convention, not under the rule of law, not under rules of law, not under federal law, but under a new system crafted by the Bush administration and personally directed by Obama. The same Obama who condemned these rules as a senator and then extended them as a president. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. In Executive Order 13603, on May of 2015, Obama signed an executive order. I just gave you the number. And in that executive order, he gave himself and the Secretary of Homeland Security the sole authority to determine who was a national threat. He also gave them the sole authority to run everything from transportation, food, communications, and include employing you and me anyway, anywhere they wanted to, and with no compensation. And they provided for you to have one chance to say no, and then they will haul you off and throw you under the NDAA. Well, what is the NDAA? National Defense Appropriations Act. It funds our military year after year. But in sections 1021 through 1023 and 1031 through 1033, they say that they had the authority to come into our homes, our domiciles, pull us out of our cars, and haul us off and detain us, torture us, and indefinitely with no evidence and no trial by jury, indefinitely, such as there is a time of law. And if they declare a war on drugs, or a time of war, if they declare war on drugs or war on terrorism or anything else, that is their wording for that directive to remain in place. And I haven't seen that lifted since. So if you under sections or under Executive Order 31603, if you refused, they would simply call you a terrorist, haul you off, no evidence required, no trial by jury, and you would be gone. There were black sites listed in Chicago and other major cities where people would disappear and never come back. But you probably don't remember that. And this is not conspiracy. It was proven. So now Obama, who as a senator said this would never happen, and as president, this is what's going on under his presidentialship. So in the name of fighting demons and picking up trucks in wars that Congress has never declared, the government shreds our rights, taps our cell phones, reads our emails, kills innocents abroad, searches 87-year-old grandmothers. Remember that grandmother in the airport when derelict TSA agents were feeling her up in her Depends? You don't remember that? Do you remember what you ate last night? Do you remember what you ate this morning for breakfast? Because in order to understand what's going on, you got to connect the dots for a few decades back. And don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and don't tell me it's conspiracy, because all the stuff has been proven. "87-year-old grandma got felt up in her depends going through the airport. If I would have been there, there would have been some dead agents. Because I swore to protect the people of this country. I don't know who they are, so you little brown shirts don't come knocking on my door. I don't know who they are. But keep your hands off of American citizens. I don't care if you agree with them or not. There's people I don't agree with say stuff comes across my newspaper feed or my Facebook feed. Guess what? Freedom of speech. I don't agree with them. I roll my eyes. I'm like, you got to know better. Guess what? Freedom of speech. And I will defend that right to the day I die. They don't have to agree with me. I don't care. You don't have to agree with me. But you brown shirts, keep your hands off of the people. "87-year-old grandmother in a wheelchair, 3-year-old babies in their mother's arms, and offers secrecy when the law requires accountability. Obama had argued that his careful consideration of each person he orders killed and the narrow use of the deadly force, which included militia leaders, are an adequate and constitutional substitute for due process." Let me ask you again. What country do you live in? What country do you live in? The Constitution provides for no such thing. He has also argued that the use of drones to do his killing is humane since they are surgical and only kill their targets. Wrong. They do, but collateral damage. We know that is incorrect, and he has argued that these killings are consistent with our values. Our values? Whose our? Are they your values? Are they my values? Look, here's the thing. Again, I don't know about you. And I don't know if you are a fellow veteran or not. And I don't know if you care or not. However, at some point, when is our blood going to boil? When are we going to get angry over the right things? And I'm not condoning or calling for anything. I'm asking questions as to when we're going to hold people accountable. Constitutionally, you cannot say I'm saying things I'm not. When are we constitutionally going to hold people accountable? So we go back to this article. Biden and Harris regime quietly amends the directives. These directives are direct spin-offs. They can say they're Bush era directives, which I'm not going to argue that, but we just read what Obama did to Bush era directives, and I'm telling you, these are spin-offs, if not direct correlation to that. Why would a regime feel the need to legalize killing of Americans? That is the question. Now, if you think that I'm out of my tree, take a look at what the ACLU says. And listen, I am not a fan of the ACLU. This was written in 2010. I wonder if they've changed their position. Obama administration claims unchecked authority to kill Americans outside of combat zones. Well, according to Obama, he can kill Americans anywhere on the planet. And according to Biden, they can too. So somehow the ACLU missed that notation. Federal court hears arguments today in ACLU and CCR case challenging an administration's claim authority to assassinate Americans it designates as a threat. The Obama administration today argued before federal court that it should have unreviewable authority to kill Americans the executive branch has unilaterally determined to pose a threat. Determined to pose a threat. Government lawyers made that claim in response to a lawsuit brought by the ACLU and the Center for Constitutional Rights, charging that the administration's asserted target killing authority violates Constitution and international law. No bloody kidding. The U.S. District Court and the District of Columbia heard arguments from both sides today. Not only does the administration claim to have sweeping power to target and kill U.S. citizens anywhere in the world, but it makes the extraordinary claim that the court has no role in reviewing that power or the legal standard that apply, says CCR staff attorney Paradis, whoever the person's name is, who presented the argument in the case. Well, that claim would go right along with what I said I saw on the ticker. And when I saw that ticker, I came out of my chair and I called my dad and I said, you wouldn't believe what I just saw going across the ticker of the Fox News. And he goes, yeah, I saw it. Obama says he's got legal right to kill Americans on our soil, including militia. No, I'm not a militia member. Constitutionally, militia is not only afforded, it is actually demanded of. And people argue that it's the United States Army when the Constitution actually says, and I'm Army, I loved it. Constitution actually says that there's no provisions for a standing Army, only a Navy. And you could argue that at that point in time, there was no need for a standing Army. We had militia, we had Minutemen, but we did need a Navy. And, I'll give you all those arguments. But you don't target American citizens just because you don't agree with them. And by the Constitution, the militia and the U.S. government is supposed to work together. And in the defense of the country and under national emergency, that would be an invasion on our soil or insurrection, the government is supposed to supply not only training and direct authority and order of militia. If somebody cannot afford their own firearm and afford their own weaponry of military grade and the ammo to use it and what it takes to sustain life in a war, then the United States government is in fact directed by the Constitution to provide those in defense of the country, not target militia leaders, aka American citizens. If the Constitution means anything, it surely means that the president does not have unreviewable authority. That wording is very, very good. He has authority. It is not unreviewable. It must be reviewed. It's called checks and balances. That is why Congress declares war. When Congress declares war, the President of the United States, that is the leader of the free world, then puts on the hat of Commander-in-Chief. He does not have unreviewable authority to summarily execute any American whom he concludes is an enemy of the state. Yet in Executive Order 31603, he gave himself and the Secretary of Homeland Security, those two, the direct authority and the only authority to determine that. I shredded that executive order word for word and line for line. So I don't care who comes on here And who argues with me? I read through it. I underlined it. I looked it up, and I know what it said. So you can say all you want to. And I went through it on the air. Read it on the air. So don't tell me I'm promoting conspiracy theories. That is false. It's the government's responsibility to protect the nation from terrorist attacks, but the courts have a crucial role to play in ensuring that counterterrorism policies are consistent with the Constitution. I would wholeheartedly agree. The government filed, and by the way, that also protects U.S. military members from following unconstitutional, say unlawful, aka unconstitutional orders. That is the one time that a military member does not have to follow an order. They better be ready to back it up, and they better be ready to go through all kinds of grief. But they do not have to follow a directive order, a direct order, or any kind of order that's unconstitutional. I would say 95% of military members don't understand that because they swore to obey the orders of superiors over them. The government also asserts the state secrets privilege, contending that the case should be dismissed to avoid disclosure of sensitive information. The sensitive information would be Obama's kill list. The lawsuit was filed against CIA Director Leon Panetta, who basically told Jeff Sessions that he does not take his orders from Congress or the U.S., he takes his orders from NATO and from the UN. 2010, you can look it up. It's still out there. Defense Secretary Robert Gates and President Barack Obama in the U.S. District Court for District of Columbia. Attorneys of the case are Jaffer, and then it goes through the attorneys. So, here we are, October the 6th. And we're having a replay of the Obama era. This is, in my humble opinion, a direct spin-off and a direct replay of Obama's presidency, which so much was unconstitutional, it wasn't even funny. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say this. You may not like Trump. This stuff did not happen under Trump. At least it was never reported. And if the flaming liberal left never reported it, you would have heard about it. And if you still support Biden and Kamala under this kind of nonsense, just because you don't like Trump, and I'm not saying you have to support Trump, but you don't have to flip over to these guys either. If that's the case, then you don't give a rip about the U.S. Constitution, and you don't give a rip about anything that is our fundamental laws. And I want to ask you again. I'll ask you one last time in closing. What country do you live in? Oh, I did hit the wrong stinking button. What country do you live in? What in the world is Biden and Kamala and the DOD doing? What country do you live in? Do you live in the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave? Do you live in a constitutional republic? Didn't know this was going on, did you? Now you do. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share something else with you. If you appreciate or do appreciate the video that I just gave you, I do ask that you like and subscribe and share this channel and all my other channels with your family, friends, people around you. And we'll just keep trying to do what we're doing here. And as well, run over to etsy.com/shop/Timothy's Enterprises and check out some of the coffee mugs and cutting boards and jigsaw puzzles and cell phone holders and things like that that we have. And as well as we are working on and have just dropped this velvety blanket with the Colorado mountain scene on it. And we're working on more, along with lampshades and shower curtains. All these products centered around my landscape photography that I've taken over the last 4 years across the country. And if I can go do some more traveling, I'll take some more pictures and make some more product. But just if you can or desire to, just go on over back to etsy.com/shop/Timothy's Enterprises and check it out. Having said that, thank you for dropping by, and I will see you in the next video.